my dear audience, we live in a world that is obsessed with the highlight reel. We see the success, the smiles, and the finished products, but rarely do we discuss about the shattered dreams, the dark tunnels, and the moments of utter exhaustion that precede every victory. In the eyes of the world, a setback is a failure. It is a sign to stop. It is a reason to give up. And it is a source of shame. But in the eyes of a believer, a setback is something entirely different. It is a divine pause. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recalibrating our hearts. To understand what is a setback, we must first understand the nature of the world that we live in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and life and fruits. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 155. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us this so we can learn from the ayat, like every other ayat or verse. A setback is not even a failure. It's not even a glitch in the system. But actually, it is a feature of the journey. And if this life were meant to be perfect, it would be called Jannah. Because this is dunya, it is also a place of friction. And just as a diamond requires immense pressure to form, just like the soul of a believer, that requires pressure of trust to reach its highest potential. Allah is Al-Hikmah. Allah is Al-Hakim, which means the most wise. When He closes a door, it is often because that door would have lead you to a room that would have destroyed you. Or perhaps He closes a small door because He wants to guide you toward a massive gate that you haven't even noticed. Now, think back to a time where you wanted something desperately. A job, a relationship, or perhaps a specific opportunity. But that door slammed into your face. In that moment, it felt like a setback. It felt like rejection. Now let's go back to the other paragraph. That's because Allah is Al-Hakim. He's the most wise. He knows what He's doing. So don't ask Him anything. Like, for example, when a setback hits, don't say, "Why is Allah doing this for me?" Instead ask, "What is Allah doing for me?" This shift in mindset changes you from a victim of your own circumstances to a student of your life. Now, we shall continue the next, which is a setback is like a divine protection disguised as disappointment. As Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah radiallahu anhu once beautifully said, had Allah lifted the veil for His slave and allowed him to know how he manages his affairs, the heart of the slave would have melted out of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now let us all reflect ourselves with the famous story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Imagine being a young boy thrown into a deep, dark, cold well by your own flesh and blood. Was that a setback? To the naked eye, yes. In fact, it was a tragedy. After that, he was sold for a miserable price into slavery. Another setback. Then he was falsely accused and then thrown into a prison. Yet another setback. But if Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had looked his life through the lens of logic alone, he might have despaired. But he didn't. He looked through the lens of tawakkul, which means trust. That's because he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is planning something for him. Now, if he didn't got thrown into the well, he wouldn't have been picked up by the carrier. If he hadn't been in Egypt as a slave, he wouldn't have been in the house of the Aziz. If he hadn't been in prison, he wouldn't have been the king's kabir. Each hardship is a precise, calculated step toward him becoming the minister of Egypt and saving an entire nation from famine. Now, today, that very thing is the thing that will guide you toward your palace tomorrow. Now, how do we practically transform our pain into progress? First step, reframe the narrative. Hussein al-Aziz is the first step. Shall we say, maybe turning your positive thoughts on. For example, having a good thought of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I said before, don't think always bad, think always is always good. Right? Now second, utilize the power of dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given Muhammad a beautiful dua that goes like Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa khudni khairan minha, which means we all belong to Allah and to Him we will return. And then to Allah, oh Allah, please provide me with something better in this place. My dear audience, do not be afraid of the setbacks. Do not be afraid of the delays, the discouragements, but ask Allah for help. You always need to do that. Remember, Allah is always on your side. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.